that. And Ender, you've really been on the money in setting up expectations for how the draft and what the teams can do. And then we see whether or not they can execute. As we jump into picks and bans for Cloud9 versus Infinity, Gnar, Zoe, TK, and Lee Sin removed.
Yeah, I love this this Zoe ban. I don't think we've seen Cody on it just yet, but regionally, he was known as the Zoe guy, a guy with a little bit more of a smaller champion pool, but so far at MSI from day one, with things like the Silas, he has definitely been trying to throw that off. Still, C9 have identified it and want to take that off the board.
Rumble and Morgana still open and available. Rumble, the only champion with 100% presence. That will be the 10th ban. Has been played 5 times, and Morgana is up. Is it something that you want to consider first pick worthy?
I mean, I do.
Yep.
I value it a lot.
Here.
We've seen Udyr still very high up on the table, but I think as far as like Morgana, from her clear speed to her game impact to her scaling implications too, when you compare that to an Udyr, like Udyr, after a certain point, he's just the same champion. He runs at you, stuns you, the job's going to be done. Morgana just continues to build AP items, offer so much in terms of CC, damage, and also the utility of the Black Shield, so I think that taking it first for C9 is the correct choice.
Definitely, and of course for Blabber, a little bit of pressure coming into this game. That misstep yesterday, heavily viewed, heavily discussed, and he'll need to bounce back, added to the fact that C9 already down 0-2. On the other side, Infinity, they have to recover from that Dom 1 loss. That was also a very difficult game for them yesterday. They will lock in the Kai'Sa, and Udyr still remains very, very high presence, around 85% here at MSI. Definitely still very heavily favored.
Of course, and I think he's not going to be unhappy to be locking that in. I also like taking the Kai'Sa away from Sven. Sven was a bit of a Kai'Sa enthusiast back in the LCS, played that far more than any other champion, so White Lotus wants to lock that in to give himself that individual agency so he can have a high impact both in the lane phase once you reach level 6 too, and those team fights, of course. We've also got the Renekton locked in for Fudge, presumably on the top side. If he wants to go for a weak side look, Renekton can sort of hold his own in a majority of matchups up there. And you heard Vedius on the desk saying, like, we want C9 to get back to the roots of maybe perhaps playing around bot lane, mid lane a little bit more, and letting Fudge be off to his own devices a bit. Use the TP to influence the rest of the map.
And of course, that Renekton and Tristana technically could still be flexed. We've seen that Renekton mid, the Tristana maybe a little bit more likely if they wanted to move that around. And whether or not Blabber's going to invest the resources to work around Fudge or the bottom lane. Last lock in here will be the Gangplank for Bogax up in the top lane.
Yeah, I think this is a very smart decision from him. I was kind of wondering, because Infinity hadn't really revealed a whole lot with their first 2 picks. These are 2 champions you see in so many different games, but as soon as the Renekton gets picked up there on the top side, Bogax is like, okay, give me the GP. Now all of a sudden I have a champion that can sort of scrap in the early levels, trade decently well into the Renekton, and then of course has the scaling element, has the ultimate too to try and match pressure around the map, clear waves. If C9 are ever sort of making their way up topside, he can use that to defend against any sort of turret dive situation too.
And vice versa, if Cloud9 go back to their roots and try to get Sven and Vulcan ahead, as you mentioned, as Vedius mentions, that Cannon Barrage is hugely impactful in any of those options. Rakan will be the next ban away here from Infinity. And what do you want to see from the rest of this draft as we start to round it out? There's some flexibility on the C9 side, but are you expecting any shenanigans?
Well, I don't know about shenanigans. We'll see if they have anything up their sleeve. Ultimately, mid lane is still the thing that really needs to be decided in this matchup. We've seen in a lot of games, Udyr sort of dictate the pace of the early game in this matchup, even though Morgana does have a pretty fast clear. Even in the game, say, like Udyr was definitely blitzing out ahead of her before she got some AP into her item mix. So as long as Cody can sort of hold on to this last pick counter, you assume, because they've already showed the Gangplank, that they can go ahead and pick a support on 4 here and save that 5th so that Cody can get a good matchup. You can then control the mid lane 2 versus 2 dynamic, and if you have a strong roaming support as well, maybe visit that mid lane themselves.
I mean, the roaming supports here at MSI have really shown up. We've seen just such gigantic impacts from the likes of Beryl, from the likes of Ming. Ackerman may have that opportunity. Will lock in that Rel, can absolutely combo. The Rel Kai'Sa combo as well. Extremely, extremely potent. And that will give Cody the option to counterpick perks.
Yeah, and you also have like a lot of backline reach, I would say, as soon as the Rel gets locked in here too. Maybe not as far as the team fights are concerned, but in the smaller skirmishes around bot lane, because now you have the interaction between Kai'Sa and Rel to get that magnet CC. As soon as Kai'Sa goes flying to the backline, you can go ahead and pop that. You also have the Gangplank ultimate to rain down, so any sort of 2v2 around bot side can be very, very explosive.
What do you make now of the answer? Cloud9 locking in Jinx as well as Thresh.
Okay, so right now, C9 obviously very heavy on the AD. This means it's going to be Tristana in the mid lane for Perks, which is very, very strong, very hard to just beat outright. But it does mean that Blabber is the sole magic damage threat. On the Morgana, a lot of her damage, relatively like single target focused, right? You land a binding, then put down your W, usually only hitting one person. Apart from the ultimate, it's hard to have an impact hitting a lot of champions. And as soon as you lock in two hard scaling crit marksmen, well, it becomes pretty easy to itemize if you are Infinity. Now, the one thing C9 have going for them is that it's a gangplank on the top side of the map, so he probably gets himself, I don't know, some boots with some armor on it, but not much more than that. Rather, dealing with Solid Snake and Ackerman could pose more of a problem later on.
Ooh, okay, so it's primarily AD focus threat here from Cloud9. Will it prove useful? Will it prove problematic? In terms of early game and how either of these teams can play it out, what expectations can we see?
Well, I would say that, like, we were mentioning, like, sort of jungle pathing and how Solid Snake may have a little bit of the edge in early tempo here. With the Udyr, I do think Tristana does mix it up just a little bit. Tristana with Halo Blades, with a W at level 1 or 2, can trade very, very aggressively up against that Victor. So as long as Blabber and Perks are aware of where Solid Snake could be on the map, Perks' presence in mid before this Victor reaches a point where he can just freely clear away the minion waves is going to be quite the threat when it comes to any sort of fight in the river. And if you watch Cloud9's game yesterday, there may be a fight in the river, and Cloud9 need all the help they can get for Blabber.
Multiple games we casted yesterday were also defined by fights in the river. And of course, any team that Perks is on will always have a huge focal point in that mid lane. Whether or not Perks can use this Tristana, get his team an early advantage combo with Blabber, that's what we're going to be looking for as we load up onto the Rift. And reminder, Cloud9 0-2 Infinity with a win under their belt. DFM taking down Cloud9 yesterday. The stakes could not be higher as we hit the Rift for game number 4 on day 3 today. So let's take a look at where Blabber and Solid Snake will be starting off. And it doesn't look like anyone is grouping up just yet, so it could be a fairly standard defensive start.
Yeah, we do have a moment to sort of like both teams. One of the things you always have to consider is like what side has like the scaling elements. Do we need to be more proactive in the early to mid game to, you know, sort of outweigh any late game scaling 5v5 the other team has? And I would say both teams have really good on paper scaling champions. You look like Tristana, Jinx, both going to be gaining range over the course of the game, can offer so much in terms of those 5v5s. Infinity, very similar, right? You have a Victory, you have a Gangplank, very strong scaling champions. But I will say C9 do have an edge when it comes to the range advantage later on, right? With the Morgana binding, just the raw DPS of your auto attackers, they're going to be hitting from further away than a Gangplank, a Victor, or a Kai'Sa. And that could be something that is difficult for Infinity to deal with later into the game. So I think that perhaps getting a little bit more aggressive around the level 6 point from a Kai'Sa Rel lane, utilizing that Gangplank, will be very influential for Infinity.
Just before we start diving into these early jungle decisions, one of the things I always look for is initiation tools. And Cloud9, I think, going to be a little bit more challenging to start fights if they want to. But when you look at some of the disengage tools with the Tristana, with the Thresh, with the Morgana, if Infinity do not coordinate or initiate well, there are tools that Cloud9 can use.
So there's a couple things to check out here in the early pathing, right? Because Solid Snake took a leash, whereas Blabber was just going solo on the Wolf Camp, does mean Solid Snake is going to be getting through his jungle faster, but it also allows Sven and Vulcan to get control over the lane right from level 1. Knowing that Solid Snake is going to be pathing towards the top side of the map as well. You see they have a ward. That's not going to be seen as Perks takes a really nice trade in mid. That means that Sven and Vulcan can push for level 2, maintain that sort of pressure without being worried about any sort of jungle gank. Then you assume Perks also has push in mid. All these things going to be very, very good for Blabber if there is some sort of river altercation. Fudge needs to be a little bit careful, and ultimately, this could just be a Scuttle Crab trade with Blabber pathing towards the bottom side, the opposite side of Solid Snake.
If, however, Infinity stick around too long or a little late to the party, all of that lane pressure you just discussed could open up opportunities for Cloud9, Vulcan, and Sven stepping forward, White Lotus and Ackerman respecting the level 2 from that early decision-making. And Solid Snake and Cody both running that phase rush. So I want to see how influential they can be when we do get to those skirmishes. An early ward from Cloud9 will spot Solid Snake on the red buff.
I'm so glad. I was just about to ask our observers to go watch this right now. Blabber trying to do red buff and Raptors at the same time. So it does get the sustain off Raptors. Now, there is a position where you can stand on that does not cause the Raptors to continue leashing over here. I know because I've run a lot of Fiddlesticks jungle clears. So it is possible, but it's like 1 or 2 pixels. Can be a little bit challenging. And at the end of the day, Blabber will just use that to make sure he's 100% HP, utilizing his passive on the Morgana, the jungle item too, to make sure by constantly applying that on all those baby little Raptors, he's going to be very high HP.
So for the non-jungle mains, that's a good thing. Obviously maximizing the kit advantage and why Morgana's doing particularly well. If you look at the mid lane, if you look at the bot lane, so much pressure and Cloud9 on the towers already.
But look at this, Solid Snake is passing towards bot side. C9 would expect him to be in the top river, but he's got no priority to work with.
Well, Death Sentence will be connected onto White Lotus. Blabber will be picking up the scuttle. Look at Solid Snake's pathing. He's going to get in behind Vulcan and Sven.
This is pretty crazy pathing from Solid Snake, but I don't think they win the 3v3, right? Blabber is right there. Ackerman very low as well. Let's see what happens.
Blabber's going to be late to the party. The Flare will buy some time as Sven continues to step backwards. He's used the Summoner heal already. That's the pullback onto Vulcan as the teleport is being channeled from Cloud9. Solid Snake looking for Vulcan and First Blood to infinity. He flashes away to safety. Alcove Gaming to escape, and the TP looks like it was cancelled.
It was cancelled from Cody, right? He just put down his W. Perks was TPing in the middle of the lane, gets shut down, and Infinity get away with murder right there. They get the kill, and C9 aren't able to reply in kind of a very strange series of events because, again, Blabber was right there, but Solid Snake so confident. The level 4 burst damage with 2 points in the Phoenix Stance 2 from the Udyr is massive.
I mean, you have to give some props here to Solid Snake. That pathing decision-making, there was no vision there from Cloud9. He gets in just at the right time. And the question is that prep? Is that just understanding how the lane plays out? And either way, it results in Solid Snake getting the kill.
Well, Solid Snake had to know that Morgana was going to be in the bot river, but he thinks he can get in and get this kill before it ends up mattering, and it looks like it's going to be fine, but look at that. Oh, Cody flashes over the wall. That's brilliant, because again, if the TP comes through, that is at least one kill and probably a second kill, because you notice Ackerman also didn't have flash. So using the reset from a dump Perks may have been able to cash in big, and already a very good start for Infinity fans.
So very nicely done there. Good decision-making, and despite the pressure in the lane, the first kill is secured by Infinity. Now, Cody did spend his flash to get over the wall. He's currently down in CS against the Strasana, as you do expect. I need to see whether or not Perks can press that advantage further at all. Up in the top lane, it's still just the farm alarm, as Fudge and Bugax continue to just trade. Not going to see too much impact for a little while longer.
Yeah, sort of cashing in here. Obviously, Perks very far ahead in CS in the middle lane. Also, a plate was picked up bot side, so the gold is still very dead even. I think Sven going back to base will get a Noon Quiver compared to just some lethality here for White Lotus, so had a little bit better of a base by staying on the map longer. Of course, it was Vulcan that died, so Sven was allowed to stick around knowing that Blabber had his back if Infinity tried any sort of repeat event. Now, both top laners use their TP to get back up to top lane. Bugax, though, is going to have his ult soon, and Perks, oh, he just got stunned!
Oh, that's just not good enough. Perks may be able to bust a shot and gets away thanks to the rocket jump. But Ackerman in range, roaming, it's what you talked about.
Yeah, Perks doesn't even care. He's gonna eat the CC. Got a little scared for a moment there because, of course, Solid Snake was just around the corner coming through the top side of the river, and Solid Snake even making a whole event out of running into the top side jungle, just splitting the map right in half, getting a deep control ward, and yeah, I mean, you just look at the map, 3 control wards all around mid lane, knowing that Cody cashed in his flash to stop C9 from getting a kill or two in bot lane. Well, now the rest of Infinity have to return the favor by making sure he's safe.
Man, I'm buying into the hype a little bit after that previous game and seeing how this one has started out. It is still even gold, which is crucial to remember. Despite the kill for Infinity, the lanes in mid and bottom are still a little bit C9 favored thanks to that plate that was secured. And Blabber is going to be roaming to this bottom lane, has the Dark Binding available as well as the Shackles, throws down the Predator, and sidestep from Ackerman means it's an easy escape.
The double thumbs up, one before the binding, one after. That hurts.
Yeah, it really, really does. Blabber now has support from Perks. Remember, we talked about this. He pushes that mid lane in. Cody not yet able to instantly push it back, but it doesn't look like the wave is set up enough for anything further.
It's been a Perks play for years. Push mid, run around, hit bot lane, hit top lane, make the ganks happen. For the time being, C9 can't really do much of anything. And we'll remember, right, like C9 do have really great range advantages, especially between Perks and Sven going later and later into the game. So taking it easy, keeping gold close is not necessarily the worst thing in the world for them, as Perks does have to jump away. One of the weaknesses here is Cody can sort of get his W for free whenever he wants if Perks steps a little bit too close into range. If he's ever like, oh, 1/3 of the way through that W, he's almost always going to have to pop the W or soak the CC.
Yeah, luckily for Perks, so many tools to get away from these ganks. He still maintains that advantage, but as Cody continues to level up and that wave clear becomes more powerful, it'll be a little bit more challenging for Perks to continue
like this.
Shoving and roaming. Blabber a little bit more active now. He's invading this support.
Mid lane priority, top lane priority. You know when the red buff's going to be responding, and Salt Snake even taking very defensive pathing, expecting something.
That was the rocket jump interrupt you were talking about, Ender. The Chaos Storm continues to tick, and there's not enough AP yet. Perks fully aware of it, and he literally just walks away.
Yeah, usually can buffer things like that, but looked like he got dragged in a little bit there, as the nature of the matchup goes. Fudge, in the face of two players, doesn't really care, but pops the dominance, surprisingly, expecting that Infinity were going to commit more. Blabber, you notice, also had the Predator, so they were ready to throw down, but Infinity are holding their cards. They're not trying to go too aggressive just yet.
I really like the heads up on the slice and dice there. Fudge slices through, I think it was Bugax, and then steps backwards to avoid the powder keg. So managing to escape. He does lose his ultimate, not the end of the world for the time being. The opening 10 minutes of this game, very, very tense, as Solid Snake has found a little bit more meaningful impact on the game on this Udyr. And exactly as you talked about during draft. And Cloud9 putting some resources bottom lane. Blabber has spent a number of ganks, has not yet paid off.
Solid Snake actually not even deciding to recall, wants to go back towards the top side of the map. It's possible they look for a gank or just the Rift Herald, right? Again, you brought your support towards mid lane, so you've got so many members of Infinity in the area if there were to be some sort of fight. Bugax has a big wave building up, so Solid Snake just making sure that it can be fully pushed out, and then he gets to decide what his play is. It will be the Rift Herald. At the end of the day, could give all that money over to Bugax after that one goes down, and that means C9 get control of the river, but you notice the Blabber is not going to the Drake. He's going to continue power clearing through his jungle, and this is about the point 8-9 minutes onward where Morgana takes over in this jungle matchup, where she can very easily multi-camp clear. You noticed she was doing the Gromp camp and the blue buff at the same time, Raptors red, these sorts of things, and that's where we're going to see the leads start to evolve in terms of the jungle camps, the EXP, and the gold, and now Blabber can convert. But you'll notice the extra time he spent before going to this Drake means that now Solid Snake can do a similar thing on the top side. They have the Rift Herald, and Fudge, without a dominance, cannot survive the tower dive.
In respect, yep, Fudge realizes it with no ultimate available to him, recognizing no support from the rest of his roster, backs away. Herald has not been dropped just yet, but one thing that I definitely have noticed is Cloud9 and Infinity, when they are assigning their player resources, they do seem to be matching a little. While the Herald was being taken, both Blabber and Vulcan were shadowing Perks in the mid lane, and Ackerman was just sitting there as well, waiting to pounce.
Yeah, I think Solid Snake wanted to use the Rift Herald soon. If they could just get half of this this turret played off, they could go for it. Of course, Perks was considering roaming up and just got his teleport back up, so Infinity were never going to be able to look for a dive there once the ultimate returned for Fudge. And Blabber, in similar kind, I think he maybe got the Gromp camp. He's nailed a couple of times from Infinity's jungle, but it will be that trade. So a lot of money given over to Bugax in the top lane, Solid Snake sharing out on that as they wailed down on the turret plates, but at the same time, Blabber individually continues to extend his advantage over the Udyr.
The question is, when will it find the impact? That Dark Binding, swing and a miss, did not find the target that he wanted. 3 plates, I think, taken in the bottom lane by Sven and Vulcan, doing very, very well to keep shoving this lane in, and Solid Snake making his way down south. Still a significant advantage for Perks as he steps all the way forward. Will be able to buffer the stun and get to safety. Fudge is thrown down. Dominus once again, and there's a number of skirmishes across them.
Yeah, but Blabber's making his way up towards this top side, so Bugax does have to be very careful. Now, Fudge, a little low to look for the dive here, especially with Bugax having access to the Cannon Barrage himself. Oh, he might want to TP back. You see those pings into the River Ward in the top lane. You got a TP on Cody, you have a TP on Bugax, and Solid Snake is also heading up towards top lane. He wants it.
Such a good call. Observers managed to catch this one as well. Fudge is very low on HP. Blabber and Solid Snake about to run into one another. Chilling Smite has come down. Blabber self-casts the shield, and Fudge will be taken out.
Yeah, Blabber realizing that his top laner was completely doomed there. He wanted to be able to walk out no problem, and they were just not ready for the TP at all. A pause is going to end up coming on through here, but I've liked how Infinity have played this early game so far. Like, overall gold still very, very close, and C9 do have the advantage of holding on to the Mountain Drake, but from the early game gank of Solid Snake going into the bot lane, when you do not expect that at all. Like, if Solid Snake's gonna be bot side, he's in the river fighting for Scuttle Crab against that Morgana, but he went all on this huge loop, and then also Bugax having the presence of mind there to know that he can TP in behind a very low HP Renekton. It's solid stuff.
Very impressive start here from Infinity, but because of the double AD comp and how well Perks and Sven are CSing and laning, it is still dead even in the gold, right? Just a brief update, there is a pause from the Infinity camp, and if I get more information, I will share it with you. But if we zoom out and think now, as 12 minutes have gone by, still very even, still very close, how do you expect the next few minutes to play out? It feels as though Infinity's plays are just working
It does. Now, what it really comes down to me is like, how do these objective fights then play out? Because you still have, right, the Rift Herald on towards Solid Snake, so we can use that into top lane, because again, they're very close to actually breaking and snapping that turret. Solid Snake's actually on the top side of the map right now, so after getting that kill, I wouldn't even be that surprised if that's the play they wanted to go for. But I'm not sure if Infinity are in a position where they want to fully contest in a river fight just yet, right? Perks and Sven have both, you know, sort of had priority in bot lane for quite some time, Perks especially. Towards mid lane, and we should also have mythic items coming out within the next 5 minutes, so potential for that to come into play around the next objective fight as well. And frankly, I think that with Perks' power at this stage in the game, with Fudge even on the Renekton, even losing, the amount he offers in a river fight around like level 9, 10, 11, etc., can still outweigh the influence that a Gangplank can have until that GP gets his items.
And I also think when you consider the range that you were talking about, when you consider the mythic items starting to come in, it gets progressively harder for Solid Snake to have that same level of influence when you've got to take a couple autos trying to jump onto a Tristana that has so many disengage tools as well.
Yeah, like with a Black Shield, it becomes pretty challenging for Solid Snake to play the game. At the same time, though, he gets to build exclusively armor, it feels like, and then never takes any damage himself. So his influence in terms of like the CC can apply and the damage one, maybe not quite so much, but it is going to be very difficult for C9 to actually cut through him and Ackerman both in these later fights.
Especially because he also has the 2 kills on his side of the Rift. He is down the 20 creep score, and if the observers can flip over to the gold, let's take a look how different is. The observers cannot actually hear me, so I'll see if production can maybe do that one for me. Or what I'll do is take a look over.
You can do it yourself. Do your own work, Trevor.
Plus 500 gold for Solid Snake out of the jungle, and dead even in the 80 carries, but it's plus 400 in the mid lane for Perks. There we go. They've just done the toggle for me. So thank you very much. Itemization-wise, as you mentioned, those mythics starting to make their way in, and there's still 2 minutes to the next Drake. So we're still going to keep this very tense laning phase. Solid Snake and Blabber are now on the southern side of the map.
It's interesting how quiet the bottom side has been since the first blood when some summoners were blown, because we haven't even really seen extreme roaming from Ackerman or Vulcan. Like, Ackerman made that one attempt towards mid, but he takes a nice trade against Perks. It could get spicy real quick here because Fudge is already in mid lane.
Fudge is making his way through. The Black Shield has already been used. Dark Binding will not find a target, and everyone steps away. The tension builds up, but no skill shots landing means no follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. Fudge was just using the priority. The wave was already fully pushed in top lane to maybe see if there was a play they can make on the bottom side of the map. Important to note that Fudge will not have teleport, neither will Boogax for that matter, the time the Infernal Drake does end up spawning. But, well, he does have the ability to get his booty down there. He can go for the long walk just like we saw from him. And again, level 11 should come through from Fudge. Level 11 Renekton in a river is terrifying to deal with here. Even with Boogax having the gold advantage in this top lane, and he should have a mythic the next time he goes back for a base himself, I wouldn't be surprised if Infinity were a little bit cautious around that and maybe even just deciding Boogax, hey, he can keep farming himself.
Need some respects to the power that he can put down. Death Sentence into the Dark Binding.
TP behind.
That may be huge. Teleport starts to be channeled. Here comes Solid Snake. Gravity Field as well. Sven's already used the flash, already used the heal. Vulcan goes golden thanks to the stopwatch, and Blabber's made its way out. That's a great pullback from Ackerman and sets up another kill for Infinity.
Infinity really on top of these teleports, because while I was talking, Perks actually just TP'd back to mid. Cody's like, wait a second, guys, we have the advantage. We have this great ward. Let's use it. So Infinity get yet another kill. It will be traded out for this tower in mid, although Solid Snake might have a little bit to say about it. Instead, he just needs to start running for the hills.
That's a lot of damage. Does Perks have it, though? No, you talked about this as well. A little bit of armor already built up, and Solid Snake makes his way out. Interesting thing here to note is the fact that Cloud9, although they've got the first tower, they continue to get pushed backwards, and it feels as though Infinity are just finding the kills. Look at this.
I think Infinity's attacks and understanding windows, their advantages, again, just another really good teleport to make a visit towards the bot lane, have been really good. At the same time, C9 have been responding quite well, too, right? Whenever there's a kill going down here, it's not just the mid lane turret falling from Perks, it's also Fudge walking into the enemy jungle and taking away the red buff, too. So that's why the gold hasn't really ballooned out of control, apart from just good laning overall. It's also been C9 finding some ways to get gold without the big kills, and now you'll notice Fudge walking down towards the Drake, just like I'm talking about. Boogax's top lane, no ultimate, no teleport to get to this fight, but it's how Infinity want to play it. They don't need him down here. They don't need to fight over the Drake. It's the second one of the game. Give it over to C9. Level 11 Renekton is no joke.
And that's exactly the call. No pressure here from Infinity. And yes, we have such a fantastic game playing out. The two Kraken Slayers on Perks and Sven going to need to do a lot of work throughout the course of this game. And Infinity extend that gold lead once they pick up that top tower. It's around 2,000 for the time being. We're going to be playing for the Ocean Soul as it continues to develop and play out, and White Lotus has done a lot of damage onto this bottom tower. So once the map starts to open up a little bit, I really want to see how well Ackerman and White Lotus can combo, whether or not they're able to find some skirmishes, find some picks onto Cloud9.
Right, like we've been talking a lot about like the level 11 for Nectin. Well, I'll raise you with level 13 on GP, the ability to spam out those barrels super fast, get a whole lot more damage down. Blabber also will be able to find this Rift Herald. Not the end of the world for Infinity, because you'll notice they're just getting a turret on the bot side of the map. Vulcan in base, actually pathing back towards the top side, so Sven has to be very, very cautious here. We'll get any minions that he's allowed to, pretty much, and it will just be trades. It will be quiet for the time being. It's been a very reserved game, I think, from both of these teams. Really just plays around teleports from Infinity, and C9 are not trying to take any risks that would set them very far behind.
It feels as though we're going to move into this type of mid-game where Dragons and Baron fights may end up determining the game. Both
100%.
teams playing relatively calculated, relatively, slow-paced on the action front, in comparison to many of the previous games that we have seen.
I think it is really important, though, to just keep your eyes on Fudge, because a lot of like C9's moves have been just him like vacating top lane, walking down towards mid, and they haven't really meant much just yet, but this is something Fudge will do all the time. Whenever he has prio in a side lane, so moving around and seeing what point can C9 then look to attack. The difficulty is, right now Infinity do feel pretty strong. They've got 4 players, almost 5, grouped up around this mid lane, trying to put a lot of pressure on this outer turret, and because Fudge had to go pick up a wave in the top lane, it means C9 do not have the ability to counterattack.
Yeah, I really like that as an indicator on whether or not C9 may be considering of going for a play. 5 members of Infinity stacking to push this wave out. The wave clear is going to be enough to hold the tower for now and give Fudge just a little bit of time in the top lane, but the rest of Infinity back away, and they won't be able to pick up some of that.
Yeah, and there are certain things that Infinity can do, especially if they get their wave to the turret just before C9 are able to make it there themselves, that makes sieging from Infinity really nasty. From the zone control of Cody just dropping down his W, Bugax can even set up his barrels to threaten a lot of damage if you try to step close enough to auto-attack or wave clear away the minions. He also has his ultimate too, so all of these zoning tools can keep C9 away from towers, and it just takes Infinity wanting to commit that much for them to be able to take it down. I don't think that's going to be super relevant for the next few minutes, but something to keep in mind the later we get into this game, when there are intense situations with Baron buffs involved, with inner towers, with inhibitor towers. These are all tools that Infinity have to work with.
It's going to be so hard to follow people during the team fights. With all of the mobility, with all the dashing up, and of course with Cloud9 backing away, Infinity will secure the prize of the 3rd and final outer turret. Uncontested for now, as both Perks and Sven backed away. Perks was now playing the side lane. He took the bottom tower in favor of Cloud9, and the rest of Infinity now making their way. Blabber is here in support of Perks if anything goes awry.
Yeah, they want to see if they can get this blue buff. Salt Snake's in the area, though, so I don't think C9 can realistically full commit to this. And do not let 20 minutes of very quiet gameplay do not let that make you forget that C9 are 0-2 in this group currently. They absolutely need this win against Infinity at the closing of the first round robin. Groups do go back and play again on Tuesday. Fudge.
Detonation Focus Me also want that result. Cody will put the Gravity Storm down. Dominus is used by Fudge to keep him alive. Here comes Perks. Gets a lot of damage, and the Buster Shot will close it out. They won't give the reset on the W, and there's
really
no
nice
support from Infinity. First kill to Cloud9.
Yeah, I really like that play coming through. Perks, we just saw him in bot lane. Now he's teleporting into top lane off of Fudge, using the Fog of War very nicely to even just start that play off. So that will be the kill. It'll also mean the turret. A good attack from C9. Now, it comes 1 minute before the spawn of the Ocean Drake, and importantly, C9 didn't really use critical ultimates. Perks and Sven, theirs aren't going to be ready, but Bugax with the Cannon Barrage, that's far more valuable than what C9 are going to have to offer. That could be critical in 40 seconds.
Oh, that is painful. And if you were not watching your screen,
that's not a cooldown either. That is a one and done right there.
Stopwatch accidentally clicked by Blabber 30 seconds before the Ocean Dragon fight. And you know, the killer was just picked up by Perks. He's already got a plus 50 CS advantage. He's picked up the kill. He's got himself the Phantom Dancer as well. And Bugax, knowing there's no Cannon Barrage, knowing this dragon is available, has teleported in. Infinity are set up first.
Yeah, so check this out. Tons of control wards ready for Infinity. Just own the jungle, own the river away from C9. It may be impossible even for C9 to find an entry in. Critically, Perks, no flash, no ultimate, so the only self-peel he has is going to be the rocket jump. Now, Rift Herald was just about to time out, and this is exactly when you want to use it. Before the Drake does spawn, it allows them to charge down mid lane and slice their way into the river. They get all their wards down themselves, and they set up to split apart Infinity.
Look at Cody's positioning. He's in the mid lane. He's now joined Ackerman and White Lotus. Solid Snake takes a lot of damage. The death sentence pulls him backwards, and that is just an easy kill.
That was just a perfect setup because, like, yes, you see, like, the hook land into all the CC, but Sven's little chompers cut off an entire pathway into the river for 2 players of Infinity. So yes, it looked a little silly, Solid Snake dying there, but it was C9 using good CC all around to zone away Infinity and see exactly the target they could shut down.
I mean, think about how hard it is to get through all of the tools. The box, the flame chompers, Buster Shot, Soul Shackles, like every single thing Cloud9 has is prioritizing preventing anyone getting on top of them. Solid Snaker gets caught out in the new Axe Effect replay, and this just allows the third dragon to be picked up by Cloud9.
Yeah, on the other side, you have like Fudge just pops the dominance. Bugax can't really walk into that, so a good setup from C9. And it's funny because C9, again, haven't done anything flashy in this early game, right? They lost a couple of kills, but they were always making sure to trade up on the opposite side of the map. And with Solid Snake putting some attention into Bugax early, Fudge not having that same investment, it meant that C9 got the 2 first Drakes of the game. Now they just pick up an Ocean pretty much for free because of one pick onto the enemy jungler, and this is the weakness of giving up early Drakes in this meta, is we are now 4 minutes away from C9 saying, hey, the game's just over if we get the Ocean. Good luck dealing damage to us if we have that buff.
What I do like is Cloud9 have kind of gone back to basics just a little bit in terms of their playstyle. It's a safe comp. It is being led by Perks on this Tristana, and as you mentioned, not putting themselves in precarious positions. But I do need to ask now, as we turn our attention to Infinity, assuming this next dragon fight in 3.5 minutes could determine the game, how do you want to see Infinity approach it? How do they get through the disengaged tools?
Well, I think a big problem for the last time was the Rift Herald just going into mid lane. It's impossible to get mid lane priority against that, and then once you're split up and you don't realize that that sort of trump card is going to come out of the chompers going down, well, then you just instantly lose the situation. They didn't really see all that on the table, and it meant they lost out in a big way. Now, they were the first ones into the river. Now, that can be very important, but it needs to be a fight for mid-wave control, and then not allowing C9 to get territory in the river. As soon as you allow them to get territory, they can use a lot of their you know, the threat of a hook, a binding, the chompers, all of these things, just make it so Infinity will be split apart and not have a good way to get into the pit.
Potentially death then in the setup. So 2 minutes, 50 seconds until that is on the cards. But also, Baron needs to be considered with double Phantom Dancer, double Kraken Slayer. Cloud9 can melt through that objective. Ackerman steps all the way forward, is going to go for the engage. Sven flashes to safety. The Baron
Fudge behind.
Fudge is teleported in from behind. He's now pushing backwards as Perks continues to blast down Ackerman. The explosive shot picks up the kill, and Cloud9 get one.
It's just a kill again. Like, this game is so weird because things are happening, but it's only ever one kill, right? We have a fight, we have a TP flank in the mid lane, our Fudge didn't even TP, just walked in there, and yet it's C9 getting just one kill, getting the push one more time. But Infinity, it's been a long time since they've hit their mark.
I wonder if it's a reflection of the pressure and the tension on the players. I mean, after Blabber's misplay yesterday in the river and then seeing that stopwatch clicked, that can just be nerves. It could be. There's a difficult situation for both of these teams, and Infinity, they already have that win. Nevertheless, now Cloud9 are in the lead. It's the first time all game long that they have had gold control, and Bugax committed the Cannon Barrage to Baron.
Yeah, they didn't have any blue trinkets ready to go, so needed some way to be able to scout out the pit. I also think we have to do our due diligence and check in on Perks versus Cody again, because it was a difference in the early laning phase, and now it might just be a solo kill here. Perks massively far ahead, 250 CS to 180.
How quickly can he do it? Does he commit for it? Plays it safe. Plays it safe, plus 70 CS for now, 2-0 and 1. Involved in all 3 of Cloud9's kills. We're 1 minute and 20 from the Ocean spawning, and Cloud9, they're setting up vision around Baron for now, but there are a couple of wards in the bottom lane, And Fudge will now start to back and spend whatever gold he has available.
Yeah, so observers, please show me the gold.
They can't hear us.
Oh, they can't hear us.
They can't hear us.
It's a 3K difference between Perks and Cody currently. It is massive there for Perks. So again, it is a very real possibility that Perks can just roll through Infinity in the fights, and Solid Snake doesn't really have the ability to tank through all of the damage coming out. Yes, he has 2 items, but it is frankly not enough at this point.
And look at Bugax, plus 1,600 gold on that Gangplank. His Cannon Barrage is just about available, but Infinity are late to the river. And props to whoever from production is letting our observers know. Very, very appreciated. Plus 1,500 gold, 30 seconds to go. Let's look at wards. Cloud9 dominate the vision around
huge.
the Dragon Pit. Do Infinity commit for
Well, it's important because C9 have control in mid, and they also have that full bot wave pushed up. It's a good hook from Vulcan, but take it slow. C9 need to wait for the perfect ability to land, not just any ability. And Fudge has the perfect flank. All the vision denial in the jungle has put him in the perfect position.
Bugax is out of position, a few seconds away from that Cannon Barrage. Now Fudge flanking from the right. Both top laners coming in from the side. Vulcan maintains the position, and the box is available in zone control. Flame Chompers could be massive at the moment. White Lotus can jump in with that Gravity Storm if he wants to, and not going to fire it just yet. Lantern taken backwards. That's the Gravity Magnet Storm rather.
Fudge in the back line.
Ackerman Fudge is trying to push back White Lotus. The first kill goes to Perks. He's going to take the rocket jump away to safety. Fudge now caught in between the members of Infinity. Flashes over the wall. Stays alive a few seconds longer thanks to the dominance.
Fudge is still alive.
Through the wall. Death sentence will land onto Solid Snake, and finally Fudge goes down. It ends up being a 1-for-1.
Fudge was just 1v4 in the backline for forever, buying so much time and dealing so much damage. Everyone besides Bugax just 1 HP from Infinity. It's a good hook from Vulcan and a teleport in from Perks.
Dragon is secured though by Cloud9. Bugax will be the next victim. Here comes Perks. Hops over
it's
the wall.
Reset City.
It's the reset, and now Infinity, they are splitting up. Cloud9 get the Ocean Soul. They get the fight, and it maintains one of these skirmish 1-kill death games.
Wow, okay. White Lotus is going to be able to get out, and Cody, he was right next to him. Oh, he doesn't get out. Perks is right there, flies in for the kill, shut down. Goes over to Perks in the bot lane. Cody was able to escape, but now C9 with a kill onto White Lotus. They're going straight for the Baron.
5-0-1 for Perks on this Tristana. And Infinity, they were looking for opportunities. It was Cloud9 that teleported in behind with Fudge, and they were able to play that one out. Still very, very unique team fights, but Cloud9 with the Ocean Soul, with the Baron buff, now have every single tool they need to close this game out.
Yeah, it's sort of the strength and the weakness of C9 in these fights, right, is that Fudge, he's a monster in the backline. He just ticked up to level 16 too, so good luck cutting him down. But there's no follow-up really until your C9 are able to deal with the enemy front line. Still, the amount of time Fudge bought, and then Perks having the idea to go back to base, TP back onto the map, ended up with them getting a couple of extra kills. They've got the Ocean Soul and the Baron buff. This should be everything C9 need in the coming fights.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Perks, a little bit of his experience there showing through. Infinity Edge now picked up. He just hit level 16 as well. 2 levels up over Cody, plus 70 CS. And Bugax during the course of that fight as well. The barrels just not really finding their targets. C9 were able to use the range that you talked about so much earlier. It is difficult for Infinity to get onto their targets, and now Infinity are going to go looking for another option. They're down 4,000, and they have to try weather this Baron-empowered storm. Yeah,
well, Infinity are trying to sort of like group up here, try to find a pick, infiltrate the enemy jungle, right? That's why they're not going all the way forward here. They're trying to play in the Fog of War, but you notice Perks just free pushing in the top lane. C9 are not giving an Infinity the actual targets to attack. Perks, even once he notices, wait a second, I only see 2 or 3 players on the map from Infinity, doesn't overstay his welcome, doesn't start whacking away at that top lane tower. Instead, backs up, literally just pressed S, not doing anything right now because he's just waiting to see where the enemy is and for the rest of his team to start pressuring in the mid lane.
Very respectful game, I feel, as we've seen the decision-making and the pathing from the players. And it is looking likely that Cloud9 could close this out with the advantage they have and the buffs available to them. And what will be very, very interesting is as this group then sets up for Tuesday, any and all tiebreakers will be played on the same day, with Infinity being DFM, with DFM beating C9. And if C9 close this out, they will beat Infinity. The 3-horse race for second will be on. Infinity now, again, continue to defend. They've lost 5 towers. Fudge is pushing the mid lane. He has teleport available. And Cloud9 been playing this one slow.
Yeah, Infinity are just trying to run the same play over and over again, right? Like sit inside a bush in the enemy jungle, see if C9 make a mistake, but they're not making a mistake. Once again, Perks playing off of Fudge, seeing if they can find something, but now Ackerman goes flying in.
Yeah, the rocket jump was used. so. That meant Perks had to commit
White Lotus!
with the flash. White Lotus goes in, but the instant buster shot. White Lotus is sent packing. It's a trade support for top laners, and Cloud9 not going to be able to take much more. However, Sven was taking the top tower.
Oh, the second C9 look for an attempt, they end up getting punished, and we rewind 25 minutes ago. It's a kill for Infinity, but an objective for C9. The inhib tower and Sven, even in a 4v4 situation after losing the top laner, they don't care. They're going to get this inhibitor. Cody, no mana, has to go back to base. White Lotus can only look on and watch as it falls.
You have to respect the play there from Infinity. The moment that rocket jump was used, instant engage, but it didn't matter because there was still a buster shot. You cannot stick to the targets. That gold lead grows. The super minions will now start pushing into the top lane, and we're 2 minutes away from the Elder Dragon. So another big objective that Cloud9 can
here we
focus
go.
on as the flash is committed for Burgax. Black Shield used there as well, and Perks will be able to pick up yet another kill. An attempted snipe from Sven.
Sven really wanted to steal that one from Perks, but Perks not going to allow that to happen. The kill does come through, and again, like, even though, yes, Infinity got the pick, got the kill, you're still looking at a Baron buff, at an Ocean Soul, and also the inevitability of Tristana and Jinx. Yes,
Yeah.
Infinity, they do so much damage, GP, Victor, Kai'Sa, but they only do it when they're in touching distance, and C9 do not have to allow that to happen. The only kills Infinity have got recently is when C9 are overextending within the fight, with Perks and Fudge, you know, going forward that last time. It still ends up being a trade, and C9 have everything to cut him down.
So much damage there onto Ackerman. Not going to be able to engage just yet. Here comes Fudge. Dominus will be available in just a moment. Super minions nearly on the steps of the top lane. The second inhibitor will fall. There's still a minute until the next dragon, and Cloud9 can decide how and where they want to push the final time.
I mean, there's a wave in the mid lane too. Perks has teleport if he wanted to base and then come back onto the map. Sven ends up not channeling his own C9. Instead, they're saying, look, we don't want to risk dying a minute before the Elder spawns, because then you give it over to Infinity, then they have the Elder buff before the Baron spawns, and all of a sudden the game is dead even. It doesn't matter if you have two inhibitors. So C9 continue to play smart, and it feels like after yesterday, they've had like that come to Jesus conversation where like, look, we are not making mistakes. We are going to play by the books, and we are going to show that we are better than Infinity, and that's what they've done this game.
And it's very beneficial for any team to have Perks in the mid lane, in the roster there, with his very cool head. 100% kill participation. He's just picked up that Bloodthirster as well. And it's something of a signature on this player. When the pressure gets higher, he tends to step up to the plate. It will still be the first win in the group here for Cloud9. And it is definitely a good look after yesterday. And for Infinity, they put up a very good fight, but it's such a difficult position to be in, the comp that they have to play into. And they're rather like unique style of initiation. They just haven't been able to get to the target.
Well, Perks is just soloing the Elder Dragon right now. It seems like Ackerman might know what's going on. It was just pinged. There's no wards inside the pit. And because C9 are showing 4 people in mid, they don't know. They have absolutely no idea. Even with Ackerman going for the flank, he's just watching. He doesn't even notice that Perks has taken it, slain it, and Boogax from a mile away gets deleted.
Because of the Elder that was picked up, the laser comes downtown, and Cody gets taken out. On a correction, it was Boogax taken out as Cody flashes to safety. There's the kill from Blabber. 2 more on the Cloud9 slate. They push into the base. They turn their attention to the Nexus turrets, and we had a very, very tense affair throughout the 30 minutes of this game. Cloud9 will pick up their first win in the group stage against Infinity and set themselves up for a race for second on Tuesday.
3 teams now with just 1 win in the group, all going to be fighting for it in just a couple days' times. And this was the Cloud9 that every fan of the LCS wanted to see, right? Yesterday, they can shake it off. They can go into Tuesday with a little bit of motivation, seeing that Cloud9 just systematically dismantled Infinity.
They did indeed. And of course, I'm still making an assumption that is the race for second. But after what Detonation did to Damwon just an hour ago, there is this crazy, crazy world.
Okay, DFM, or Damwon still have 3 wins, Trevor.
There is a crazy, crazy world.
Slow it down, pump the brakes.
We will have to find out. Sven looks ecstatic on stage, celebrating that win, and it did work out.